Week was er in Amsterdam een conferentie over AIDS, een Europese conferentie. Maar er is ook een internationale conferentie dit jaar nog. We praten met John Mellers. Hij komt uit Zuid-Afrika. Die internationale AIDS-conferentie is in Zuid-Afrika.
Yes, that's correct. It's the 13th International AIDS Conference. It's the first time that the conference is actually taking place in the developing world. The first 12 conferences have either taken place in North America or in Europe. So it's the first time, as we say in South Africa, that the conference is coming to the epidemic as opposed to the epidemic coming to the conference.
South Africa as a country is suffering heavily from the AIDS epidemic?
Unfortunately it is. South Africa currently has approximately 4 million HIV positive people, and we have an infection growth rate of approximately 1,500 new infections every 24 hours in the country.
Who are suffering the most? The people who live in the countryside or the city people?
It's difficult to say who's suffering the most because HIV and AIDS doesn't know any boundaries or borders. So everybody is at risk to HIV and AIDS. But particularly people in the rural areas are at greater risk because they do not have access to as much information about HIV and AIDS. They do not have as much access to healthcare or to primary healthcare as people living in the urban areas.
An international AIDS conference will have how many participants are coming to South Africa?
The International AIDS Conference is expecting between 9,000 and 12,000 people from all over the world. It is the biggest HIV and AIDS conference on the International HIV and AIDS calendar.
What's your role in the scheme of things there?
I am one of the slaves who work in the office, and I'm the...
Aren't we all?
Indeed, and I'm the coordinator for the community program of the conference because the conference has a scientific program and it has a community program, and I'm coordinating the community program of the conference.
Is there interest in the subject within the South African community?
There certainly is a lot of interest about HIV and AIDS. There also seems to be a lot of commitment from the structures in South Africa, especially the government. I personally feel that the government can still do a lot more about HIV and AIDS. I also believe that they're struggling with how to do more about HIV and AIDS, given the context of South Africa and all the other important issues which still have to be addressed. But I think the important issue is that you can't address issues of poverty, health, education without addressing HIV and AIDS as a central theme.
We are here in Holland and Amsterdam. We're not very prudish, so to speak. Sex is kind of normal. Is that different in South Africa? Is that one of the reasons why it's hard to discuss these things?
I think it's partly to do with being able to talk about sex and sexuality, but I think it also has a lot to do with South Africa's past. The apartheid era brought around a lot of mistrust, a lot of misbelief. So the epidemic in South Africa is still very much HIV positive phase, as we call, so you can't see whether people are sick or not. So people still have this disbelief that there is HIV, and because of the many different cultures in South Africa and ethnic groups, sex and sexuality is also taboo within the various cultures. And as opposed to trying to find safer sex and sexuality messages which are appropriate for the various cultures, so far they've been trying to have a uniform message across the board, and that just does not work.
Are you learning something from your visit here at this European AIDS conference in Amsterdam?
Certainly, it's been very interesting for me to come to this conference. It's also interesting to see the number of HIV cases in the Netherlands compared to a country like South Africa. But what's been very interesting is to see how the epidemic seems to be picking up again in the homosexual communities, especially in the young homosexuals who believe that there is now treatment available, so they do not have to practice safer sex. And I think that's posing a big challenge to organizations to ensure that young homosexuals continue to practice safer sex, although there is treatment available for HIV.
AIDS en HIV. U weet het allemaal, Afrika is daarbij een gebied wat enorm getroffen is. We praten met Rosette Gali Wango. You're from?
From Uganda.
Uganda. And there You work with HIV patients?
Yes, I work with the AIDS support organization, and I look after our clients' children. There is a fund we got that caters for their children, and I try to see that they are fixed in their schools. I give them counseling and career guidance.
Is there enough medical supplies in Uganda for people to have treatment if they have AIDS?
Okay, they have tried really to avail the simple medicines for symptoms, but as for antivirals and those very expensive drugs, we don't have them. Sure.
So the only thing that you can do then is try to help people, diminish their suffering.
We just try to control the symptoms. That's all, and we give them counseling, and we help them to push on with their families.
What is the role of the traditional medical system, the medicine man, the tribal elders in helping people?
Okay, I've not studied so much about the traditional medicine, but what I know, they are also trying so much to see that they have a hope that may get a cure to HIV/AIDS. They are trying very much, but I've not studied so much about them.
How many people are suffering from AIDS and HIV in Uganda?
Sorry, I don't have the exact figure.
What do you think? It's 30% of the people?
The figure is alarming, but I don't have the exact figure. I can't give the exact figure.
You come to this conference and you gave a lecture about your work. What's your impression about this conference?
Okay, this conference mainly has tried to talk about the policies, prevention and care in the European countries. And we also came in with our African perspective. And I think people are learning, we are sharing so much from each other's experience, and maybe it will help us to take the European experience to our African countries.
Sita Shah komt uit Sudan en heeft daar in de afgelopen jaren ook gewerkt op het gebied van aidsbestrijding en werkt nu voor de Universiteit van Amsterdam. Sita, what are you doing at the university at this moment in Amsterdam?
Well, I'm doing a short course in law of international organizations. And why I choose this course, because before coming to the Netherlands to do my master's in Institute of Social Studies, I was working back home in Sudan at UNAIDS. And I thought that this course is quite relevant on that basis. And moreover, I'm planning to do advanced master's course in medical anthropology at University of Amsterdam.
Is Sudan one of the countries that has been afflicted very much by the AIDS and HIV problem?
Yeah, it is. It is eventually getting very high, but like people, they really don't know about it because it's underestimated and underdocumented due to the present government, which is very.
Is that a religious question that the Islamic government doesn't like it to be known or doesn't like to talk about it?
Yeah, it's very much true that it's very difficult to talk about it because they mentions that mostly it's why it's underestimated the ratio, the cases being Islamic country, like we don't have premarital sex, and as you know,
officially you don't have it.
Yeah, officially we don't have it. Like it's considered as a heterosexual transmission, and otherwise we don't have any problem. And before, I mean, no drugs users, no much blood transfusion in that sense. So we don't have premarital sex. So we don't have HIV/AIDS infection or STDs infection.
But in fact, are many people from the Sudan infected over the past years?
Oh yeah, if you see the ratios by Sudan National AIDS Control Program cases or the documents on a quarterly basis, there is increase, very high increase. And officially they mentioned that it's 2%, but yeah. It's more.
I think it's more.
It's more.
Now you're mentioning that these international AIDS organizations like the UN, we see from what's happening in, for instance, Bosnia and Czechoslovakia, in the Balkan, that these organizations sometimes don't work very coordinated. Is that a problem?
Partly, but the UNA is just operated in end of 96, beginning of 97. So to evaluate this sort of program, it's a bit difficult at this level. Yeah.
Is international coordination essential for the effectiveness of anti-AIDS campaigns?
It's eventually, it's not only international organizations' cooperation, but it has to come also the NGOs as well as the regional level and the community-based level, not only international level. Yeah.
So it's a matter of communicating the danger and the possible cures and the prevention.
Yeah, that's very much true.
Afrika, een van de gebieden die getroffen is door de HIV-AIDS-epidemie. Maar dat betekent ook dat heel veel mensen uit Afrika en Nederland daarmee te maken hebben. Goedendag, jij bent?
Kwesi Boahin, de secretaresse van AFAPAC.
Afropak.
AFAPAC.
En wat is dat voor een organisatie?
AFAPAC is gewoon AIDS-preventieorganisatie. Is een organisatie die opgericht in 1993 om AIDS-voorlichting te bieden aan Afrikaanse immigranten hier in Nederland.
Mensen dus bijvoorbeeld uit Ghana of Oeganda die in Nederland wonen?
Ja, Sub-Sahara-Afrikanen die woonachtig zijn in Nederland. Dus Ghana, Zuid-Afrika, Uganda, Zambia, Nigeria. Ja.
Heeft u succes gehad met die campagne of niet?
Jawel, AFAPAC is in 1993 opgericht. En tot nu toe hebben wij 1/3 van de Afrikaanse mensen bereikt met AIDS-informatie.
En bereik je ze dan met informatie in hun eigen taal of in het Nederlands of in het Engels?
In eigen taal. Dus we gaan naar de mensen toe om AIDS, zeg maar, symposium en voorlichtingsbijeenkomsten te organiseren. En we geven ook counseling aan mensen die geïnfecteerd zijn met HIV.
En nu gaat u nog een stapje verder, want u gaat nu naar Afrika toe, hè?
We willen graag.
U wilt uw expertise, uw folders, wat u geleerd heeft over voorlichting ook naar Afrika uitdragen.
Het is heel belangrijk, want we geven heel veel informatie en expertise aan de Afrikaanse bevolking die hier in Nederland wonen. En de meeste Afrikanen reizen op en neer. En om effectief AIDS-preventie te kunnen onderhandelen, moet jij ook het land van herkomst ook kunnen bereiken met effectief preventieacties. En daardoor hebben wij plannen om binnenkort project ook in zeg maar Afrikaanse landen te gaan starten.
Gaat dat voornamelijk via familiebanden? Wilt u de mensen daar bereiken via hun familie hier?
Nee, wij gaan samenwerken met een organisatie in Ghana om AIDS-preventiematerialen te ontwikkelen. En we zijn nu in onderhandeling met AIDS-fonds voor subsidie. Alles gaat om geld. Dus,
en als je praat over voorlichting, praat je dan over papieren, folders, praat je over videoproducties, televisieprogramma's?
Video en radio, fora en face-to-face contact, zeg maar, outreach met de lokale bevolking.
Okay.
Dus voorlichtingbijeenkomst, dat werkt wel, omdat zoveel mensen niet hoog opgeleid zijn. Dus het maakt geen zin om brochures te...
Omdat ze dat nog niet kunnen lezen?
Nee, dat maakt geen zin.
Dus radio is een effectieve manier?
Ja, radio is beter, televisie is te duur. Dus dat kunnen wij niet betalen. Maar wij leggen veel aandacht aan informatie en bijeenkomst. Ja.
Even, uw stichting is te bereiken via postbus. Op de achterkant staat het 12389 1100 AJ in Amsterdam. En u kunt ook bellen 600 34 54 Daalwijk. En dus de stichting AFAPAC maakt zich dus over voorlichting over AIDS, over HIV aan Afrikaanse mensen in Nederland. En nu willen ze de stap wagen om ook de mensen in de thuislanden, zeg maar in de landen zoals Ghana, met hun expertise, met hun ontwikkelde procedures om mensen voor te lichten, te bereiken.
Dus de bijdrage van iedereen is van harte welkom.
Ja, dat is ook altijd belangrijk. Geld hebben ze nodig. En dat is helemaal...
Ook van u. En van uw omroep.
Oké, nou wij helpen ze door dit programma niet wel uit te zenden. Dankjewel.
Dank u wel.